Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by Fred and Lou Hartwig and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics tonight: nothing is perfect, not even Kansas City; perfectly strong arguments for and against gun control; and arguing with Hillary Clinton must be a plus for Chris Kobach; plus roasted toast. But we start with our interview segment and welcome Kansas City, Missouri Councilman Scott Wagner. Wagner represents the 1st District at large, was recently re-elected and then named Mayor Pro Tem by Mayor Sly James. Wagner is a Kansas City native, graduating from Oak Park High School and William Jewell College. His professional experience is in the areas of marketing and public relations. As you know, if you watch Ruckus, there is a lot going on in Kansas City. We're going to talk with him about some of it. Councilman Wagner, welcome to Ruckus.
Thank you very much. Always good to see you.
You are elected from the 1st District at large, meaning you were voted on citywide. What geographic area does the 1st District encompass?
So it's mainly the Clay County portion of the city, not quite all of that piece of it, but generally north of the river to the northern city limits, that I-35 side of the city, and that's all mine. Yeah.
You're appointed as Mayor Pro Tem. What exactly does that mean?
That basically means that when the mayor is not in attendance or cannot be someplace, then I am asked to go in his stead, and primarily the administrative piece of it is especially on Thursdays when we have our legislative sessions. When he isn't able to be there, I run those meetings, and then God forbid anything happens to him, I step in wherever needed.
So that's why you pressure him to go on vacation so often?
Well, you know what? Every once in a while, I do give him some suggestions.
Let's talk about this downtown convention hotel controversy.
Sure.
Is the issue going to the ballot? We know CFRG, Citizens for Responsible Government, obtained apparently enough legal signatures to force a vote, but the city government says, no, you can't do that. The contracts have already been signed. No decision apparently has been reached. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen?
Well, I think what should happen is that we honor our obligations to the contracts we've signed. This is, in many respects, no different than what happened about 4 years ago when we had the NNSA plant in South Kansas City. Part of the issue there that precluded going on the ballot when a group of people wanted us to do that was contracts had already been signed, and the ability to unravel those is nearly impossible. And in doing so, both in the case 4 years ago and this issue that we now have with the hotel, if we were to do so, we now make the city open for litigation because we have those signed contracts in place. So what should happen is that, unfortunately, it would not go to ballot. What I expect to happen, we'll find out here in a couple of weeks, but I think there is a clearer understanding as we have these conversations that there are great legal issues at this point if we were to go to ballot.
Well, when would an election be held if one were to take place? Next year?
At this point, it would be April of 2016.
So that could delay the whole process quite a bit.
That could delay the whole process quite a bit, and now it not only brings the contracts that have been signed into doubt, leaving us exposed for litigation, but then because the financing that has to occur and going to bond markets and getting those rates, who knows what will happen in that time between now and April, which could mean that the entire project now is financially unfeasible.
Crosby Kipper was on the program last week as a panelist, and we were talking about this issue, and he said the reason it won't go on the ballot is because you're convinced, you, the council, is that it won't pass.
That's not the issue. The issue really is...
You think voters would approve it?
You know what? I think, as we have found when we've talked about various issues with the city and things that have gone to election, I think for the most part people would actually, when the facts are out there and you talk about the convention business, you talk about the jobs that are associated with it, you talk about comparisons in other cities across the country, the reality is there is great business that comes with a convention hotel, and the case can be made for the business that Kansas City has lost because a convention hotel has not been built since 1985.
Are you persuaded that the city's financial obligations to this project have been fully revealed to the public?
I think so. I mean, the reality is that there is a defined risk that the city has. And unlike any other city in this country, where in those cases, cities are having to guarantee the debt that's associated with it, or they're asked to put in much more in terms of upfront costs. Ours is very well defined, and the exposure that the city has is very, very limited in comparison to some of these other cities. What has been somewhat, I have to say, unfortunate is that when people begin to compare Kansas City with places like Indianapolis or Baltimore or other cities in our peer group that have done these sorts of hotels, they don't look at the actual deals themselves. And when you get into the deals, what you find is that these other cities have much more exposure than we have, that they are building a much larger product than we will, and they just sort of say, well, we're in the same boat. The reality is we're not.
Well, we've got to wrap it up. Out of time. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Kansas City, Missouri Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Scott Wagner. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Marianne Murray Simons is a freelance writer and consultant. Gwen Grant is president and CEO of the Urban League in Kansas City. Jason Grill is a former Missouri state representative and now runs J. Grill Media, and is the man responsible for me wearing a pocket square this evening.
I love it.
And Woody Kozad is president of the Kozad Company, a government relations firm. Of all his critics, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach is likely most grateful for the most recent. Democratic presidential contender Hillary Clinton has weighed in, claiming Kansas has harsh voting restrictions, citing Kobach's decision to remove people with incomplete voter registration forms after 3 months of inactivity. To register for the first time, Kansans have to provide proof of citizenship through a birth certificate or passport. Kobach says Kansas has the most secure voting system in the country. Assuming Kobach, a Republican, is interested in higher office, and who does not assume that, isn't criticism from Hillary Clinton about the best thing that could happen to him, Woody?
Well, Franklin Roosevelt said, I ask you to judge me by the enemies I have made. And I think both Hillary and Chris would be pleased with that in this dispute. It doesn't do her any harm, although Kobach's not famous in, wherever the Iowa primary or Iowa caucuses, but it doesn't do any harm for either of them to be in a fight with the other one, and given the demographics, they must be.
He does have a bit of a national profile, though, because of his work on immigration.
It's going to do him more good to be in a fight with Hillary than it'll do Hillary to be in a fight with him. The real question here is, does illegal voting by non-citizens affect the outcome of elections? The there's a congressional election system that measures these things up out of Harvard, whole aggregation of universities, and they came to the not so shocking conclusion that in 2008, presidential year, 6.4% of non-citizens voted. And that in a congressional year, 2010, 2.2% of non-citizens voted. 14% of non-citizens are registered to vote. Of the ones who were asked if you got a photo ID, of the ones who were asked that, a quarter of them, 3/4 of them still managed to go ahead and vote. So the photo ID was only successful in 1/4 of the cases where you attempted to use it in stopping them from voting, which is, I suppose, Kobach would then make the argument, that's why we've got to have birth certificates.
And I think Kobach has made the argument some elections are decided by a relatively few votes.
Al Franken won by 312 votes.
Exactly. Jason, there was a story the other day that the people being removed from the voting lists in Kansas for failure to complete the forms are mostly young adults,
right.
20s and 30s. Now, the argument in the past has been older people can't deal with these electronic devices and can't email things and can't deal with all that. This sort of gives lie to that argument, doesn't it?
Well, anytime a young person has to find their birth certificate or their passport.
Well,
it's
how
always an
hard can
issue.
it be?
It is hard. I mean, if you're just, I mean, I think we should be encouraging more people to vote. I like what Hillary Clinton said
I do
about
too.
people voting, getting automatically registered at 18.
She's calling for universal voter registration
and that's a
and
great
20
idea.
days
Well, what's
of
wrong with
early
that, Mike?
in-person voting.
What's wrong with
What's
people
wrong?
It's
getting out and voting?
unnecessary is what's wrong with it.
So
it
is
isn't.
needing a birth certificate
If you look
to
at the
register.
overall, if you look at the overall voter participation, and we should be doing everything we can to encourage people to vote in this country. If you look at the voting in Kansas City elections, the turnout is abysmal. We shouldn't be trying to take people off the polls. We should be trying to put them on. And I think when you turn 18, just like when the draft was in place, your number, you would automatically be eligible to be drafted. You should be automatically eligible
Well,
to
you had to
vote
go
at
sign
the age
up.
of 18.
You had to go sign up.
But your information
got
was put in. You
paperwork.
got
Well,
put in the
but
lottery automatically.
No, you didn't. No, you had
And
to
then
go
you
sign
get
up
this-
for
go sign
the
up.
Well,
selective
we should
service.
have
A degrading process,
but,
as
Yes,
I
indeed,
well,
I
but
recall.
I think everyone at age 18 should automatically be registered to vote. I agree with Hillary Clinton on that. And I think that Kobach is making a whole lot of fuss about a little bit of data that really doesn't stand up. He's going to take, in this case, remove 37,000 people off the polls, while he's only been able to bring 3 cases, 3 incidents that are worthy of investigation or prosecution.
But they
And
can
they're
get
not
back on.
illegal
And
immigrants.
all they have to, all they have to do back, they have to go back and start over. Is all they
They're
have
not
to do.
illegal immigrants. His work is having much more impact on citizens of the United States than it is on illegal
Does your vote
immigrants.
really count in Kansas, though, Mike?
Oh my
If
goodness,
it-
I hope it does.
If it's a Republican vote, it does.
One of the questions here about these non-citizens voting, they don't know the answer to is, are they concentrated in a handful of states? Because if they are, then your point is they may not count anyway. If all of them were in California and New York, they just wouldn't matter. Even in a presidential election, they just wouldn't count.
Making voting accessible to everybody, I think, is
It's-
the point
it's-
here. And
No,
we
I
need
don't
to,
think it is.
I
think
do.
having
I do,
ignorant
absolutely.
people who don't care vote is not a good idea.
That is not your decision to make, Woody.
It's
No,
their
it isn't.
right-
All
it's
they
their
have to
right
do
to
is go
vote.
register and
It's
vote.
their right to
It isn't
vote.
my decision to make.
Marianne,
It's up to them.
Steve Rose and others have written that Kobach has political aspirations.
Sure.
Probably wants to be governor or senator someday from Kansas, maybe beyond that. He has impeccable academic credentials. We know that. Do you see him as a potential prospect as governor or senator from Kansas?
Unfortunately, yes, at this point. The way things are going and the way the legislature is moving, I think he could be a strong candidate. I, as a Canton, think that's very unfortunate. And I hope some others, maybe you could cross the state line.
No, I'm staying in Missouri.
Yeah, please stay with us.
Tax cuts are nice, but I'm staying in Missouri.
Kobach has a bachelor's degree from Harvard, a PhD from Oxford, and a law degree from Yale.
And
Not
he's
bad.
done some
Not
really
bad.
silly
Impressive
things in the state of
credentials for a
Kansas.
Impressive
xenophobic
indeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
legislator.
There is no place like home, and star columnist Yigal Abahaka is among the slightly more than 2 million who call Metro Kansas City a great place to live. But Abahaka warns not enough people are choosing to live here compared to our so-called peer cities, and the 2 states in which the Metro resides are experiencing low growth, and to compound the problem, local businesses are not creating enough jobs. But take heart, Yale believes there is hope, citing a new initiative called KC Rising, put together by the Civic Council, the Mid-America Regional Council, and area chambers of commerce. The goal is to develop, and I quote, a regional, collaborative, business community-led effort to develop a path for the KC region to reach its full economic potential. So, Jason, you're a young entrepreneur. You talk about local business on your weekly radio program. Is KC Rising going to rise to this challenge?
I think it's a good step. I mean, I think if we can coalesce all these groups together, Mike, it's a good thing. Here's the issue that we have in Kansas City with growth, in my opinion. One, we don't have a research university in our city, which all of these other MSAs and all of these other cities have, these peer cities. 2, the fastest growing population cities are cities that embrace foreign-born population. They're growing the fastest. There's the most citizens, immigrant entrepreneurs. Those cities are flourishing. We have no programs in Kansas City to recruit immigrant entrepreneurs or recruit immigrant-born citizens to our city. That is why these other cities are seeing population growth. Partly, in my opinion, the Kauffman Foundation has done studies on this. That's one of the key issues. Louisville's doing it. They're seeing growth. I mean, if we're going to grow our population, we have to be more welcoming of more foreign-born citizens and immigrant entrepreneurs.
Where is your local program heard and what time?
9:80 a.m. KMBZ 980 AM at 4 to 5 on Saturdays.
Okay, let's take a look at a graphic from the website of KC Rising. This will sort of outline the goals, and then we can comment on those. One of the goals is to build capacity to bring existing businesses to greater scale. Synchronize and optimize initiatives supporting existing businesses, and fully realize the KC region's potential through business growth. Marianne, I know you do consulting work, so maybe you can help me. That seems somewhat ambiguous.
It is. What it really means is we need to grow our own. And I think this initiative, I know one of the co-chairs very well, worked with him for years, Scott Smith, is an excellent leader, very astute, and a convener. And I think we really need to convene both sides of the state line, which is one of our biggest problems, and pull together to grow the metropolitan area, as opposed to competing with each other, which has been one of the Achilles heels that we've had in recent years.
Gwen, in terms of what Jason was saying a moment ago, I thought Kansas City was attracting millennials and all sorts of people interested in the high-tech business and startups.
It's doing that, but it's not attracting more diverse populations, which is an issue of concern, and Jason is exactly right. In addition to immigrant populations, more work needs to be done to ensure that there are more African American and Latino-owned businesses growing in Kansas City. We have those populations, and we need to concentrate on those. When you go into these meetings and you see the demographic in the room, if the millennials are pretty much all white. Very few minorities are engaged, and that is important in growing a community and growing cities and attracting
Whose job
a population.
Is it to engage them?
It's the job of the city, this committee. if that's their.
It's important, Mike, because this is what other MSAs and peer groups are doing, which Yale points out. And also, I would say, quality, high-paying jobs. I mean, if you get a job in San Antonio for $100,000 a year, and you're not from Kansas City, and a similar job here pays you $65,000, you're going to go to Texas, right?
High-paying jobs are weekly radio talk shows.
No, but quality jobs and quality pay. I mean, we got to compete on the pay scale. The CEOs need to.
Yale's column quotes Independence Mayor Eileen Weir, Woody. She says the region has a big challenge when it comes to perception with many job seekers. Kansas City is not seen as a place with a lot of opportunity.
Well, I'd say that's accurate. I don't think it's on most people's radar. I just think we're not a town you think of. I mean, if you think of going someplace growing now, you go to Texas. It comes to everyone's mind as the biggest growing state. Look, we have some deep-seated cultural set of problems here that nobody has yet successfully identified. You know how I feel about tax policy. I think it's very important, but it's not everything. And I feel like the school district is really dragging us down, but it's not everything. I'll tell you, I brought an out-of-town client in to meet some of the leaders of the Civic Council. I'll just be frank about it. I was embarrassed when I left the room. This is not a group of people that's going to set the world on fire. Our leadership is not and has not been for a long time in this city the kind of leadership that you get in cities that really grow.
And
that's politically true and in the business and civic.
And Woody, the Civic Council is made up of the chief executive officers of the 100 largest employers in the city, essentially.
And
right?
and because of that, systematically, you're not going to have women. Very often, women and minorities at that table. So when you have decision making that is not representative of the entire community, it's hard to grow communities. I mean, that's a cultural thing.
Yale lists a bunch of places that are outgrowing.
We're doing, I'm not.
40% of them are in the 20% of states that have no income tax.
We got to move on here, almost out of time, sorry. Syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer is also Dr. Charles Krauthammer, a Harvard-trained medical doctor who once practiced psychiatry. Krauthammer's two professions, journalism and medicine, merged in a recent column, rebutting the usual calls for more gun control legislation after each tragic episode of mass killings. While endorsing more aggressive psychiatric interventions, Krauthammer also observes that only about 3 million people in this country suffer with schizophrenia, and only a tiny fraction are ever violent, and predicting which ones will be is almost impossible. Krauthammer says the only measure that might actually prevent mass killings has absolutely no chance of ever being enacted. That is gun confiscation through a mandatory government buyback program. So, Marianne, is Krauthammer right? Further efforts at gun control would simply be futile?
I don't think so. And I think it sort of is diverting the real issue here, which is that we've created, as Mary Sanchez said in a recent editorial, a culture of violence. And it's shoot first, ask questions later. We need to not make guns so available for people who are not in a position to make a rational decision about its use. And I think that's at the heart of it, Mike, the biggest part of the problem. They're too accessible.
Well, do you see some kind of legislation that can combat that?
I think it's on multiple levels. I think it is the way that we indoctrinate those who believe in Second Amendment rights, along with what's happening in the law enforcement community. It is a lot of different issues that need to come together. It can't just be legislative. It needs to be an overall understanding of what the base issue is here, and it is the culture that allows this kind of violence to happen over and over again.
But how do you change the culture?
Well, you know, culture is an issue, but I still say the primary issue is we have far too many guns available in circulation in this country. So if we have a culture of violence, if I don't have a gun, I'm going to have to deal with that a different way. I can get into fisticuffs or something and nobody dies. But if I've got a gun and I'm angry, then the consequences are far more severe. So we've got to do something to address why we have so many guns, the types of guns. I mean, there's got to be policies. If you support the Second Amendment and we have the right to bear arms for the sake of protecting our families or hunting, then do we need assault rifles? Do we need Uzis? Do we need all these types of guns that people can freely access in this country? Absolutely not.
You can't just freely access them, can you?
They get these. They're in circulation. The bottom line, right? And so if you look at countries like Great Britain, where people don't have guns, but people in Great Britain get angry. They're passionate. They have violence, but they're not killing. But they're not killing each other.
Every other personal
They're not
crime
shooting each other.
rate, except murder with a gun, is 50% to 300% what it is in the United States, in England, which is supposedly this very peaceful country. In Japan, the Japanese hardly ever kill one another. They move to America and they hardly ever kill one another. In Switzerland, even though guns are available to them in America, in Switzerland, every male between the ages of 18 and 45 has a fully automatic weapon and lots of ammunition at home, but they don't kill each other. Mary Sanchez is right if she blames the culture, absolutely. But it isn't how we teach people what the Second Amendment says. We may be a violent people. It isn't because of guns that we are violent. We are violent for other reasons.
And the mental health thing is impossible to track.
Too much access to them.
Yes.
Jason, I think one of
you keep saying that, but when they have access in Switzerland, or when the Japanese come here and have access, they don't kill each other. It's not the access.
But Marianne is right in saying that there are a number of layers to this problem. But we're not trying to address it in any constructive manner because the problem keeps worsening, and
Nothing's happening.
And the lobby is so strong.
Nothing
Jason, some of those who perpetrate these mass killings, as Krauthammer points out in the Oregon case, the guy did pass a background check and did buy the gun legally.
Right, and that's the issue. So
how do you stop that?
You can't, and if someone is mentally ill, are you going to have someone there making sure they take their meds every 5 seconds?
Who's going to decide the person is mentally ill and needs to undergo a psychiatric intervention?
That's another layer to the cake with the mental illness thing. But the problem is that nothing is happening. No one's doing anything. There's no discussion happening except on shows like this.
But the cities with the strictest gun control legislation are the cities with the biggest murder rates. Yes, Chicago.
And I think that goes back
to toddling town.
To all these different things that add up, culture.
Quickly, what do we got to wrap this up?
Look, they just this thing went around on emails to conservatives about this guy who had 55 gun charges. The Justice Department dropped it to 1 and let him out on probation. They're not enforcing the existing gun laws in this country today.
Okay. Now it is time for Roast and Toast, where the Rockettes offer a high five or a low blow to people and events in the news. And let's start with Gwen.
I'm toasting the spirit of Kansas City that makes me proud to be a native of this great city in the aftermath of the loss of 2 firefighters in the line of duty. And when the way the city rallied around the firefighters' families and the merchants, the citizens, individuals, everyone came together to support the families in the aftermath of this great loss. I love Kansas City. The spirit of Kansas City always steps up in times of need. And I wanted to say special words of sympathy to both the families of Mesh and Leggio.
Woody.
A toast to a movie, Back to the Future, which is, this is the future they came to, 2015. And so I took the DVD out last night, plugged it in and watched it. I'd forgotten how delightful a movie this was. For me, the high point was when he gets to 1955 and the guy asks him, so who's president in 1985? Ronald Reagan. And the guy says, oh yeah, Jane Wyman's first lady. It's a fun movie.
And Mary Ann.
This is a town that is behind the Kansas City Royals. And tomorrow night is a huge night here in Kansas City. And I agree with Gwen completely that we rally at times that are important to the city. And the Kansas City Royals are a real unifying force in the city right now. And I think on Friday night we will take the crown.
And Jason.
I want to toast the KC Pet Project. Last week they had a bone cutting, if you will. Mayor Sly James, the city manager, were there. The things that the KC Pet Project and the No Kill Animal Shelter do in Kansas City are unbelievable. They have 10,000 new animals coming every year. Their facility is small, but they're unveiling plans to build a bigger facility and to help these animals. And the people that work at the KC Pet Project, I commend you on your hard work and for doing what you do for Kansas City. I also want to toast Mike Shannon for his great pocket square today.
And finally, here is a toast to the return of Cliff Drive on the city's northeast side. My last year in the U.S. Army was spent at the Hometown News Center at Independence and Hardesty, so I drove Independence Avenue daily and would occasionally take a quick detour through Cliff Drive, at the time a beautiful scenic area. The ravages of time, crime, decay, and neglect ultimately caused the area's closing. Now, finally, it's revitalized and open to weekday drivers and weekend bikers and walkers. So welcome back, Cliff Drive. It's great to see you again. And that is Ruckus for this week. This program airs again Sunday morning at 11:30. New program next Thursday at 7. Now, on behalf of the Ruckettes and the crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.